taking what had worked for other people and replicating that for someone starting off with no money, no capital. That is so important. And so that way you don't waste years of your life trying to figure it out when you could just go to someone that's already learned and then just learn from their experiences.
The Apartment Gurus podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group, an apartment acquisitions and holdings firm co-founded by Carl York and Tate Siemer, host of this show. We offer you the opportunity to be an owner of cash-flowing, wealth-growing apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. These assets are recession-resistant, risk-mitigated, offer significant tax advantages, and are a great alternative to the stock market. Ready to check it out? Go to www.investwithgreenlight.com today to book a personal consultation with Carl or Tate. Again, that's investwithgreenlight.com. We look forward to meeting you. Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Apartment Gurus podcast. And again, for me, the coolest part of getting to do this show, and that's how I look at it, as really having the honor and privilege of doing this show. And by far the coolest thing about it is connecting with people that kind of inspire you or really inspire you, light you up, give you good new ideas that you can take into your business and kind of give you a whole new perspective on what you're up to through hearing about their experience and hearing kind of about the wisdom and lessons and acquired along the way in doing business. So today's perspective is really unique because Caleb Johnson's with us. And Caleb, I know that you got to it was 9 million in assets under management by the time you were 25, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so is that how old you are right now?
I am. Yeah. And so we're closing on another property, so that number will change. Praise God. But yeah.
Cool. Nice. That's great. We'll have to talk about that deal on that property. I want to hear all about that. So Caleb is zooming in from Phoenix, where I'm sure super hot Phoenix right now.
110, brother.
Yeah. It's getting warm in Salt Lake City too. So yeah, we're getting into the middle of the summer, so to speak. And like we alluded to, he acquired $9 million worth of real estate before the age of 25. He's basically got a really good grasp on how to start with low money or no money, especially with no money down deals, and bring a lot of lessons from his acquisition of his portfolio that he's got going so far. So Caleb, super stoked to have you on the show, and welcome to the Apartment Gurus.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome, man. This will be a lot of fun. So tell us all about what I just was telling everybody about. When did you get started in real estate, and maybe kind of take us from that point, or even some backstory and the rest of your business background? Love to hear all about it.
Yeah. So where I start my journey is when I was 18 years old. And the way I got into real estate was because of my parents, and not because they were wealthy by any means, but because they actually had day jobs. And I saw the life that they had, and I knew I didn't want that for myself. Just seeing how unhappy they were. And it's not that they're always unhappy, but just that wasn't the life that I wanted to live for myself. And that really got put into perspective when I was around that 18-year mark, and my mom had surgery. She took a sabbatical from work for about 3 months to let her body heal. And during that time, she was going to live off of her savings. And then at the end of 3 months, she thought that she'd be ready to go back to work, all recovered. But she got to that 3-month mark, and Tate, she wasn't healed. So she wasn't ready to go back to work, but she was around 6 years old, so getting ready for retirement. And that was really on her mind. And so she was stuck with this tough decision to, one, either go back to work and make money so she's not dipping into her savings, but physically, it's going to be hard, right? So she can't do it physically. Or what she can do is she can stay home, rest, recover, but prolong her retirement by years, dipping into her savings. And so I saw her go through that hard decision. And what she did was she went back to work. And honestly, guys, I would see her come home in tears because she was in so much physical pain. And so that moved me and motivated me to start taking action. I wanted to help her retire early. And I also knew that I didn't want that for myself. And I didn't want my future children to see that and think that's what they have to look forward to. So bought my first property when I was 19. That was a fourplex, moved into one unit, rented out the other three. And lots of fun stories on that one, but was in residential for about 3 years. And then now I've been in commercial for about 3 years. So 6 years total.
Awesome. So in residential, were you mostly like small multi, or did you do some single family stuff?
Yeah. So I think we did 4 deals in that first 3 years, a fourplex, a duplex, and sold the fourplex through a 1031 exchange, bought a retail facility through some partners. And then we did a flip as well.
Nice. And then tell us about the last 3 years. What kind of deals have you been doing the last few years here?
The last 3 years, we have focused on value add apartments in that I'd say 15 through 30 unit range. We're focusing on larger assets because of scale of economy and more units under one roof, and there's more meat on the bone. So that's our focus now. And today we own 5 assets, and about a week we'll own 6.
Nice. So tell us about what you're about to buy.
So it is a 30-unit apartment complex here in Tucson, Arizona.
Nice.
And value add opportunity really close to the main campus university out there. And we're really excited about that one.
That's really exciting, man. Is that going to be your biggest deal yet?
No, we do have a 30-unit in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay. We almost bought a 50-ish unit in Albuquerque. It was actually the first, quote unquote, somewhat larger scale deal that we ever put under contract. And the loan was scheduled to close literally right when the COVID stock market crash happened. We were supposed to close like 10 days after that doomsday. A lot of us forget kind of how that was, because the market crashed hard and everybody in the real estate world just panicked and thought it was the end. And turns out the next 12 months were the biggest 12 months ever in multifamily.
Right.
But a couple of things, man, like just the way that you kind of started moving your feet and doing what you could do, deals that you could do. And I'm sure, like, especially your first deal being a fourplex, like that had to feel like a little bit of a stretch at 19 years old.
Yeah. I'm always of the ilk that I'd rather just take action and learn along the way, because I know I can't know everything, because I could learn for 5 years and never take action. But just taking action for me is how I learn best. I don't want to make a stupid decision at the same time. So there's a fine dichotomy there.
Well, I think that is the necessary attitude in entrepreneurialism in general, but this space in particular. You have to be willing to take action. You have to get out there and get deals coming across your desk through networking with brokers or going straight to sellers. Greenlight networks directly to brokers, by the way, and I'm talk about that another time, but we get all our deals through broker deal flow. And then you need to be obviously doing what you need to do to get to the point of writing offers on those deals and negotiating contracts and start buying properties. Like that's really, it's not a whole lot more complex than that. Now, there's obviously lots and lots of moving parts and nuances, but I would argue that the moving parts and nuances in commercial multifamily space, especially, it's almost weird. Like as you get bigger, the simplicity almost gets bigger too. Like it's hard to describe, but like the hardest deals that we've done have been the sub $2 million purchases with $2 million CapEx budgets or whatever. We're doing one of those right now. Those are so hard to get done, especially from a debt standpoint these days. So anyway, I'm just back to reflecting on what it took and how many of us were at a point in our lives at age 19 that we were thinking so just brilliantly, honestly, about starting to acquire real estate. Was the fourplex in your home market?
It was, yeah. Yeah. And I can't take all the credit for that. I definitely had some mentors in my life, and Bigger Pockets was the first resource.
Nice.
And it was free. And so they have a podcast that I listen to a lot. And so taking what had worked for other people and replicating that, I think for someone starting off with no money, no capital, that is so important to replicate what someone else has done. And so that way you don't waste years of your life trying to figure it out when you could just go to someone that's already learned and then just learn from their experiences.
Yeah. Brilliant. So smart. Okay. So we were talking before the show. I want to get back to your story and especially this new deal and get your business plan. It's a value add, which is what we do almost every single time. But we got to talk about the big kahuna first. Corey Peterson, hopefully someday he'll hear this, and who knows, down the digital rabbit hole or down the highway, hopefully he'll come across this. But you and I both have obviously just a tremendous amount of appreciation for Corey, as he was foundational for me and Greenlight, my company, making the transition from 12 unit, well, actually single family to triplexes to a 12 unit to a 20 unit, going from that to buying, we literally bought almost $60 million worth of real estate over the next 18 months after joining Corey's mastermind at the time, which was a coaching mastermind. It was a small group and we met in person. There really wasn't such a thing as Zoom back then. It's crazy. And this was only 5 years ago, but we met in person in Phoenix 3 or 4 times a year. I had a one-on-one day with Corey where he just took me in under his wing into his office, and 9 to 5, he just showed me his entire business. And he was willing to partner with us and be on our company profile kit or credibility kit, right? So he and Shelly, his wife, who's wonderful and one of the best cooks, chefs I've ever been around, they were willing to basically be advisory partners for Greenlight Equity Group while we were getting started, which gave us the ability to kind of leverage Corey's experience and knowledge and wisdom and credibility to kind of break into the industry. And for us, it was just so key. It accelerated our timeline massively, probably 10x our timeline. And keep in mind, this is like now masterminds, you meet once a week. My mastermind, which is called Multifamily Octane, which everybody should look into. We meet twice a week on Zoom for an hour. And I have monthly one-on-one calls with everybody. And I have an online curriculum and we have a Slack channel, and the amount of like deliverables, and it's just the industry has changed and evolved so much that, and Corey's doing his own, I think it's called Investor Fuel, which is, I'm sure, a great mastermind as well, knowing how he does things. So anyway, I'd love to hear, Caleb, after kind of me sharing my experience with Corey, and more than anything, he just kind of gave us a sense of confidence that we could go do what we wanted to do and needed to, or felt like we needed to do.
Yeah, I think especially starting off, whenever you have someone like that in your corner that has done a deal before, and let's say you're underwriting an offering and it looks green and it's a green light, and to have someone else validate that and also back you up means so much.
Yep.
And the way that I met Corey was my first apartment meetup. Corey was a guest speaker at a barbecue restaurant. Nice. And he shared 2 things that changed my life. The one was that you're going to be green regardless of when you start in apartments. So and
smart. Yeah.
The reason that meant so much to me was because I thought I would gain more experience in residential real estate, and then I could use that in commercial apartments. And part of that is true, but for the majority share, it's not true. A lot of that knowledge, you can't transfer over to commercial.
Yep.
And that's what we focus on today, is helping residential investors kind of make that pivot into investing in apartments. And that second point that Corey shared with me that changed my life was his first deal. And his first deal was an apartment complex. And without going into the details, he bought an apartment, and 4.5 years later, he sold that asset and made $2.5 million.
Yeah.
And I thought, one deal, okay, 4.5 years, $2.5 million. there's no way that I can do that in residential real estate. Yeah.
No
and
way.
all that was forced appreciation. So that was because of what they did to the property. They were able to raise the value of that asset. And so they had the control, and then they were able to sell it. And I said, okay, I'm all in. And I've also met Corey, and he's only about 30 minutes from my house. So just meeting him, being in person as well. I've seen he has his big red Jeep. And so sometimes he'll drive down the road and I say, oh, and it has Kahuna Investments on the side. So that's kind of funny.
He's branded that really well, man. He's really ridden that brand hard. And he was branding Kahuna Investments long before branding was really the hype thing that it is these days. He just had that nailed. And it's a personal brand, right? Which is so different than a company brand, we could talk about that probably for a whole episode. But just side note, dude, I'm sure he would come on your show, and I'm sure he would have you on his show.
He actually, we have recorded it and it'll launch. So, and same to you. I think he'd be awesome on your show.
He was one of my first guests 3 years ago, 205 episodes ago. He was in the first 10 episodes, I believe. And it would be amazing to have him on. And actually, Shelly, who is just as sharp as Corey, in some ways, probably more so, especially in the capital raising space. She's actually now doing podcast appearances. So I'm really stoked to get her on the show. She's been with Corey the whole, 9-10 years they've been doing this, and every single deal. And she's out pounding the pavement for capital, like on the regular. So really impressive, both of them. So Corey, Shelly, if you ever hear this, Caleb and I think you made a big, big difference. Obviously, two things that changed Caleb's life. That's phenomenal. And you guys obviously changed our lives, my life. So amazing. Heavy impact. You know what I'm going to do, dude? I'm going to make sure that Corey listens to this. Good.
I'll drive over to his house and make sure he does too.
Yeah. I'm going to send him the link, and I'm going to follow up until he's confirmed that he listened to it. Anyway, one thing that you said just 5 minutes ago, you talked about forced appreciation in Corey's deal. And it's something that was such a key part of us getting our heads around the scalability of the opportunity, how you can literally raise the value of multi-million-dollar property by multi-millions of dollars just by raising rents, in some cases, $50 or $40 a unit, especially when you get into the larger unit counts. But in a lot of cases, you are remodeling units, you're adding amenities, you're remodeling amenities, common spaces, and then obviously raising rents accordingly. And there's an art to that. I think there's a science to it too, in terms of sampling rent comparables from the surrounding area and figuring out exactly where you can get those values to. And that's such an important metric, especially when you're talking 100, 150 units. If you're off $25, $30 on rents, it changes the numbers a lot either way. So anyway, this term of forced appreciation, I just want listeners, if you've heard it, I want you guys talking about it a lot more, right? Because it's one of the biggest selling points that you have in commercial real estate and multifamily real estate, is being able to add value to the property, in some cases by multiple millions of dollars, simply by either doing an operational value add or a physical value add, which is also operational because you end up increasing rents. That's where lives get changed, honestly. Like Corey, that's where he created that first big one for him. And it's such a powerful concept. And in particular, it's not based on current market conditions, right? Your interest rate is, your CapEx budget is somewhat influenced by that. Your exit cap rate that you're underwriting, all of that is influenced by the market. But based on very specific data, that you can go in and get a rent premium or a rent delta or a rent increase, another way of saying it, of $200, $300 on 100 units. Dude, that's big time deal right there.
That is. Yeah. And then you have 150 units on top of that. And on the flip side of that, I feel compelled to say is we had an offering we were pursuing, and it was 160 some units. And we were a month into negotiating a PSA, and we had just gotten the PSA and had dialed in the terms and found out that there was an error in my underwriting spreadsheet.
Oh man, that sucks. Oh
yeah, which meant
that hit me right in the chest because I've had that happen, bro.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that I'm not alone there.
No, you're not alone. Yeah,
but
it's painful too. I hate that. So what was it? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, 164 units in Oklahoma City, and so. Oh, the error in the spreadsheet was, I think in the first year, we were assuming a 3, maybe 4% rent escalation. So from year one, we were going to have, let's say, $1,000 and then multiply that by 5%. We were going to experience that in first year, which just doesn't happen. If you're signing a 12-month lease, you can't just assume that you're going to realize that in the first year.
Yep.
And so that required a $1 million retrade, which the seller didn't want to do. Right. Yeah. So how we were just talking about how forced appreciation is so powerful. And if you just change $30, and if you can just realize that, that means a huge value on the back end. And at the same time, in your spreadsheet, just one little number can literally ruin your deal.
You betcha.
So the lesson that I took away from that was to have someone verify my underwriting early on in the process, after an LOI submitted, maybe a little bit before that, even when you're getting serious, have someone else verify your numbers. That's so key.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And like you said, early in the process, I think it's especially key. And look, just kind of pitching the mastermind concept a little bit here too, is like right now, the multifamily octane group is a pretty tight little group, and everybody on meetings has plenty of opportunity to share, ask questions, ask for needs to be met. And like, I'm a single guy with no kids. Like, I don't say that with any meaning other than I'm a single guy with no kids, and I have lots of time to put into my business and to my coaching clients and my mastermind clients. And so that's my job right now for these guys, is to be really looking over their shoulder, especially in underwriting. And I'll give a little plug to Real Estate Lab, which is the acquisitions platform that uses AI to actually automatically load T12s and rent rolls into your underwriting. It is so amazing. And we're all using it. And it's just next level. I have no official relationship other than we use Real Estate Lab, and we love it. And that's another way of, if you're a Real Estate Lab customer, they have weekly underwriting sessions where you can send a sample deal in and they'll like just underwrite it on a Zoom call with everybody on it. So
that's David Tupin, right?
David Tupin. Yeah, my man.
I just had him on the show, and the technology where you can upload that, I've been wanting that for years.
It's unbelievable. Look, populating a spreadsheet with your income, expenses, and your rent roll and your unit count, and breaking down all the units into categories and doing all of that manually used to be what a lot of my job was. And that was an hour and a half, maybe an hour long process in some cases. I mean, I got faster and faster at it, but it's 30 seconds in Real Estate Lab, and all you need is a rent roll and a T12 in a spreadsheet form right now. And he's actually he's putting PDF technology together, and you've got your underwriting. And of course you go and you fill in inputs and assumptions and vacancies and financing variable, all that stuff. But it's brilliant technology. And I'm sure David will hook you up if you reach out and tell him that you heard about Real Estate Lab from the Apartment Gurus podcast here from Caleb and myself. And definitely listen to Caleb's podcast with David. He was on my podcast about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And what he's done since then and has been building since then is, I'm sure it's well worth hearing about. So what's the name of your podcast, Caleb?
My podcast is called From Trial to Triumph.
Love it. From Trial to Triumph. And is it focused in the real estate space, or is it more broad?
It is pretty broad. We've had athletes on there, people that run ultra marathons that they come back from the army, and so they are blind and deaf, but they're running ultra marathons. Wow. And people that are counselors, pastors, and a whole slew of other things. So yeah, definitely come check us out.
From Trial to Triumph on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, everywhere you need it. So
you're awesome.
And we'll come back here towards the end. But while we're thinking about it, what is the best way for listeners to learn about you, learn about your company and your podcast and everything that you offer?
Yeah, the podcast would probably be the best way. So from trial to triumph. And additionally, if you will check us out at redseacapitalgroup.com, all of the stuff in the media, you can see shows that I've been on, and Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're all over that as well.
redseacapitalgroup.com. I know you've got a great Facebook presence, but are you pretty heavy on LinkedIn too?
Yeah, we post all the time about social media and the podcast on LinkedIn and deals that we're closing on and working on. So yeah, we're over there as well.
Dude, isn't LinkedIn amazing? Like it's amazing in a way none of the other ones are, in my opinion.
How so?
Well, I just think the level of content and the density of content in the business world, in the entrepreneurial space, and specifically in our space, it's exceptional. And I heard Gary V, talking about how basically LinkedIn is kind of where Facebook was 10, 13 years ago. Facebook didn't have the reach and the profitability to demand the advertising that they do now, right? Instagram's the same way, obviously. LinkedIn, you've got so much actual really original good content from influencers and thought leaders and just contributors with very little advertising content and not a whole lot of of course, people are pitching stuff and that sort of thing, but I think it's next level. And look, if for us, when we've got a $10-12 million capital raise for a deal that we're $18 to $27 million deal, which is what we've been working on the last year, we're going to go try to find private equity to fill part of that capital stack. And that's going to look like either pref equity or JV equity, joint venture equity. And I won't get granular on the differences there, but a pref equity piece they'll maybe do 50 to 65% of the required equity, which takes your capital raise down a big chunk, right? Well, where do you find that stuff?
LinkedIn.
Go to LinkedIn right now. If you're listening to this, go to LinkedIn right now. Take your market or a market that you're interested in. So let's say San Antonio. Enter San Antonio commercial, multifamily, private equity, and see what happens. You'll be blown away. There will be hundreds of people that come up with their contact information, a description of what they offer. A lot of these guys are debt equity brokers. So they offer loan products and from agency and banks and life insurance companies and all kinds of debt options, first position debt options. And they coordinate and place equity from family offices and other private equity sources. Mm-hmm. Guys, this is seriously, if you want to get to the next level, these are the sorts of things you're going to start to need to get resourceful about. And show me any other place other than LinkedIn where you can find 200 private equity sources in one market. And by the way, it doesn't have to be specific to any market because a private equity source will probably fund deals all over the country. So
I'm so glad that you said that because I have literally used that exact system to find pref equity. And It's exactly like finding one person to write you a $7 million check.
That's it.
So it's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Eventually, I think especially now, this whole concept of the bigger the deal, the better the deal. And it's not because bigger is better. It's because the opportunity at scale to create a huge amount of equity or value in the property is there. And to do that, it requires a whole different level of raising capital. I mean, you're not going to syndicate $12 million worth of equity. I mean, you could $50,000 to $100,000 at a time if your investor network is big enough. And we're working on that all the time. Tip of the cap to Raise Masters, my capital raising mastermind that I'm in, that is just, again, second to none. I couldn't be happier being at Raise Masters, which, again, no affiliation, just membership. I'm a happy member of Raise Masters. And that's 430 people that are raising capital for different projects or different levels. So you're in Raise Masters too, Caleb?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, again, I already 10x that investment this year. I've only been in it for 5 months. So the value of these paid masterminds, guys, look, if you need a mentor, want a mentor or a coach or a coaching mastermind, which is what I'd recommend, or a one-on-one coach, you want to pay for that. And you actually want to find somebody that you feel is worth paying a fair amount like for that. And in fact, if it doesn't like get you a little bit nervous in that investment and a year's worth of coaching, it's probably not enough of skin in the game for you, because you need that nervousness. You need that skin in the game to step into this next level of greatness that you're capable of. And that investment in the mastermind, the group, the coach, the one-on-one coach, whatever that looks like, it's a fraction of even what your first acquisition fee might look like on a deal, right? Let's say it's a $25,000 mastermind. That's actually kind of an expensive one, but there's $50,000, $100,000 masterminds. Like, you will 10x, 20x, 100x those investments. I promise you. I promise, assuming that it's the right fit for you and that it inspires you to show up and do big things.
I think a big part of that too is, a big part of that is you get out of it what you put into it. I have had horror stories of where, being a younger professional starting off with no capital, I didn't have 20 grand to put towards something like that.
Right.
So I found a mentor that was willing to teach me, and I could just add value to him personally. But I'm 100% with you, Tate, is that you got to find a mastermind that you can learn from. And I think the key is really finding someone that is authentic and is actually currently in the game.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is because I went to a free training through a Facebook advertisement, and it was one of those where they just hype you up, and they initially get you with $100 investment, something very small.
Yes.
Then they invite you back, for like a boot camp weekend. And then it's $1,000. Then they invite you back again for the big pop, the 25 grand. And there's no real value, right? They just kind of feed you a little bit at a time. I remember that one that I went to that was like that. He actually kicked me out of I asked a question and he ended up kicking me out, which was a blessing in disguise. So the reason I say that, it's just really important to find someone who is in the game and active, and join that mastermind. Of course, find out where you are financially and if it's a good fit, but definitely do that.
This will kind of get to a question I'm going to ask you towards the end of the show, but like, if I could go back and coach myself, let's say I started in real estate in 2006. I'm literally twice your age, Caleb. I just turned 50, which is very surreal, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been an amazing run, amazing life. I got in single family here in Salt Lake City when houses were still 99 grand for 1,500 square feet and near 10 minutes from downtown Salt Lake City, which are now 600-700 grand, and did the whole single family thing for a long time. First of all, if I could go back to any point in between 2006 and 2018, which is when we got into multifamily, and just shake myself by the shoulders and say, dude, like, this is a small game you're playing in the single family space. No matter how big the house is or how much, if $1 million house, whatever, it's still a small game, and you're built to play bigger games. And look, not everybody is, and that's fine. Like, no judgment, right? Like, go buy 20, 30, 40 single families and Airbnb half of them and retire. Like, that's a totally legit model, right? It's not the vision that we caught. To me, that's not as exciting as the vision we caught around 2018, which had a lot to do with Corey, for sure. And Adam Adams, my buddy, really, really good buddy, who I've traveled with a whole bunch in the last couple of years and had amazing adventures with. But he's really the one that, he and Corey were like the foundational guys that got me into the space. So I got to acknowledge Adam as well. Okay, real quick, we're starting to kind of come up on time here. I feel like you and I could do a series of podcasts for a few reasons. Believe it or not, I work with all guys, which is not by design necessarily, but it's just kind of the way it's happened. And really trying to get them to write about where you are. And even I've got guys, their first LOIs on $10 million, $12 million properties in the mastermind. So it's really cool. You've got 6 years of experience in real estate and you're 25 years old, man. That's like legit. That's totally cool, man.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, praise God again. And I've had some amazing mentors in my life and partners too. That was huge for me starting off, was just finding partners that I could leverage their resources and their name, right? Because who's going to trust a 22-year-old person, and rightfully so. Leveraging someone else's name was really, really impactful for me.
Yeah. We've said it many times on the show. It's probably been a little while since we've said it, but this is a team sport. Like, you are as good as your network. You're as powerful as your network is to provide you the resources and the connections and the relationships that you need to get these deals done. And here's like a little kind of slice of magic, in my opinion, is this is nothing more than a relationships game. It's nothing less than a relationships game too, because it's an intense relationships game. And of course, there's underwriting and due diligence and legal stuff. But even all that stuff, if you think about it, takes flight inside of a conversation with another person, right? Like, whether you're sourcing a loan or LP investor or KP, a sponsor, like, again, if you're going to do a $30 million deal, or let's say $8 million deal, you need to have a sponsor that has the net worth and liquidity, or as part of your GP, or you do, or one of the general partners has to have that. So these are all attainable inside of partnerships. And so if you genuinely like people and you like connecting with people and you like kind of building other people up and being a contribution and an impact to other people, like, you're going to eventually win at this game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Got the mic right there, man. Bombs. Love it.
Well, dude, this has been awesome. I've loved this conversation, Caleb.
Me too.
So yeah, thank you so much for doing this and for sharing everything that you've shared. And I've got one kind of final question for you. But before we go there, again, redseacapitalgroup.com and Trials to Triumph podcast.
Appreciate you having me, Tate. It's been my pleasure and privilege. It's been awesome.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Love it. So final question is, for you, having no business experience at all wasn't that long ago, right? Like, in the grand scheme of things, like, I was hustling in the single family space 6 years ago and starting to transition into small apartments, but you were finishing up like high school essentially 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So were you an entrepreneur in high school or before you graduated?
No, I was a gamer.
Okay.
I was a gamer, man. And my first business was like a multi-level marketing thing with Amway. And so that was my first taste of business.
Okay. Got it. Which is somewhat entrepreneurial, and technically you own your own business when you're in MLM. But okay. So my question is, if knowing what you know now about specifically multifamily and what the space is like, what the opportunities are like, if you could go back and coach yourself at, let's say, age 17, age 18, as you're looking at getting into business from that point forward, what would you say?
That is a really hard question. And I'm going to go a little deep with that. But what I'm going to say is put your ego aside. I can be somewhat of an isolationist. So meaning that I can cut people out of my life pretty quickly. And Tate, what the root of that is, brother, is it's my ego. Yeah. I can think that I'm better than others really quickly, which is false, because everyone can provide value and teach me something. I don't remember who said it, but he said that every man is my superior in some way. So be it engineering, be it marketing, be it relationships, whatever it may be, anybody can teach me something. And so starting off, and if I would have known that, that would have saved me a lot of failed relationships on my part that I failed on, and would have strengthened a lot more. So that's what I'd say.
Oh man, that is such a home run, dude. You killed that question. I almost got a little emotional because it's so freaking true that your ego will sabotage anything good you're trying to do, especially when it's inside of relationships, which is what this is. That's what this business is. So really, really well said. And definitely talked about staying humble a little bit here and there on the show, but nobody's ever really said it like that. That's it, man. I think we'll just kind of leave it at that. I know there was something in there that just was like so brilliant to me, and I know it'll hit me here. I may add a little trailer at the end, but dude, I'm super grateful for you sharing and being authentic and just, again, bringing what you bring, man. Appreciate you.
Tate, thanks so much for having me, man. You have a killer show and just love hearing about your mastermind and what you have going on there. So I know that you're providing an amazing value to your guests there. So keep it up, brother.
Thanks, man. You too. And please, I mean this, let us know how we can help you. Any form or fashion. We're in the same mastermind and Raise Masters, which is super cool. So we'll see each other on the Slack channel and whatnot, but stay in touch and let's have you back on in a year and talk about how you've 10x'd your portfolio by then.
Sounds good. Man.
Believe it or not, that's coming, bro. There's a day that 10x is coming for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's everyone. You know what that it stems from is people, right? If you just have that one relationship with that person that can 10x what you're doing now, you're just one relationship away.
Yep. Awesome stuff. All right, guys. Thank you so much again, Caleb. Listeners, thank you. We love you guys and so appreciate you listening. It makes us all even more meaningful, which honestly, I'd probably do this if it was just Caleb and me, but having you guys as listeners and hearing from you is very special. So thank you. And we will see you on the next episode, everybody. This episode of the Apartment Gurus is being brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group. Greenlight Equity Group acquires and operates cash-flowing multifamily assets in progressive metropolitan markets such as Salt Lake City, Idaho, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Columbus, Ohio. Greenlight targets consistent, solid returns for its investors and a healthy environment for residents by operating high-quality, safe, clean, affordable apartment communities. To learn more about Greenlight and to sign up for the investor list, go to www.glequitygroup.com.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.